Okay. How are we doing? Thank you all so much for this morning's activity. So I know that some of you guys didn't get to go, but we did a surrender. We're learning how to receive both in our feminine and then also surrendering to things that no longer work for us or beliefs that we held on to. So it was just this precious, and they had there's a fire pit up at the top, which made it special. And every woman did a share and let go of something. And it was just, you could just feel that. And it goes perfectly into this last presentation of mine, which is about core belief systems. And this is my favorite because the growth, my surrender was not needing to know anymore and just surrendering to my heart brain instead of constantly having to think my way through things. And it's so relevant because everything that I'm practicing, that I'm teaching, that I've experienced is like, this is my most recent birthing of things that I've experienced, and then I'm watching it work in my life, and then I'm putting in a PowerPoint and using these creations to try to logically explain some of these things. So this is my favorite one because I had so many ahas, and I've been using these ahas, and it just gives me the chills because it just fits so perfectly with how this whole weekend's flowing and unfolding. So how negative beliefs influence your life and how to overcome them. So some of the agenda. So we're going to talk a little bit about what are beliefs. And then what I want to do is go into where do beliefs come from. And then the best part of this is the belief structures, how beliefs are structured. And the negative belief, the way that it's structured and the way that it operates, once we have this awareness of the way that it operates, it starts with the awareness, right? And so it's so powerful to have the awareness because once you're able to understand how a negative belief actually functions, you're able to see through it. You get X-ray vision through your negative beliefs. And so we've been learning how to be the observer, right? Get in our bodies, be present, watch the thoughts go by, not attached to them. And so I'm going to explain a little bit more of why it's so hard sometimes that we are attaching. It's just this part of us that is built a certain way that it's just the invisible part of us, of these negative emotions and negative belief systems that we hold on to that really affect and sabotage our lives in a lot of different areas that we want to grow. So we're going to look at belief structures and then overcoming the tricks of the negative beliefs. There's 8 tricks that it does. And as I explain it, I get goosebumps because this is my favorite. So what are beliefs? As core creators, we're all creators in here. And so as we create, every thought that we think as a collective consciousness, but also as an individual consciousness, is affecting your reality that's being played out. So when we talk about beliefs, a belief is just a thought that continuously gets chosen by you. You're choosing a thought and you're continuously perpetuating this thought. And so the thought is creating the reality in which we're all experiencing in our own individual universe, but also as a collective, because we have a lot of common thoughts that we all believe in and that we all are constantly thinking at the same time. So, and when we talk about beliefs, there's 2 ways of looking at them. So we have what are called the surface beliefs, which you can see as on this tree right here is really the branches of a tree, right? And surface beliefs are really just a byproduct of deeper beliefs that we hold on to. And so core beliefs then are really the root of everything, because we're looking at a surface belief. A surface belief can be anything as kids need to keep their room clean, or, I need to work in order to keep my job. Those are surface beliefs. But the core beliefs are the building blocks of the life that we are living. And even if you're someone who doesn't believe that thoughts create your reality, it is inevitable that when we think something, that dictates the decisions that we make, and the decisions that we make in our life dictate how our whole map of our life is playing out. So the core root of what we're constantly thinking are the core beliefs. And they're so subconscious because they have been conditioned into us at a young age, and we've been seeing through these filters our whole life. So we're creating this reality of these filters that we can't even see. So they're invisible, but we're still living by certain standards, certain values, certain beliefs. And so these are the core beliefs. And Some of the things to stress about the core beliefs is that core beliefs, the roots, are the source from which everything grows, are the source of how we see ourselves, and then is the source of how we see the universe that we live in. So again, these are we all have individual filters and goggles that we wear on a regular basis that dictates the reality that we're living. So whether we're sabotaging our reality in certain moments or we're having those positive or negative moments, it's all coming from our core roots of what we believe. Now, when we look at the two beliefs, right, we talked a little about duality yesterday. So we have the positive beliefs and the negative beliefs, and we're learning how to integrate our negative beliefs because they're a part of us. The dark, you can't have the dark without the light. We're not trying to get rid of them anymore. We're trying to bring them in and both balance and integrate. That's the success formula to healing, is the best way of putting it. But what I want to focus on from here is really understanding, so what are negative core beliefs? And when we look at negative core beliefs, again, they are subconscious. So they are automatically running. They are programs. Think of us as a computer. This beautiful body is a computer. The core beliefs are the programs that are running our lives. They are also the result of a lot of impactful experiences from childhood. So yesterday we went over a few of the wounds that we all could carry just based off the society that we grew up in, the parents, the culture, anything that was core rooted into us. They're results from impactful experiences from childhood. And again, we no longer are aware. So when we have these subconscious thoughts that are constantly moving and they're there, this is the voice. We no longer become aware of them because what happens is when you start thinking about these beliefs, when these beliefs start continuously moving, they start just becoming the subconscious part of you, so you go on autopilot. And so again, we don't know a lot of the times unless you have a coach or unless you have someone who can reflect something back to you and you understand how relationships work. They're also results of similar repeated experiences that become inflexible, believable, and deeply rooted. And the thing about them being deeply rooted, when you believe something to be true, we start living this self-fulfilling prophecy. Because not only are we start thinking a thought, then it manifests in our reality. So we're like, aha, see, I told you. And then we believe it to be true. And then we do it again. I believe this to be true. So you think the thought, it comes into our reality. You believe it even more. So it just becomes this cycle that you tend to, your beliefs influence your expectation, which influence your behavior, which influence results, and it reinforces beliefs. So we continuously reinforce these stories that we have bought into as a collective, but also as an individual. So each one of us have a running story about something in our lives, and a lot of times we can't see it. The other thing is that these negative core beliefs become our voice of reason. And the human shadow is actually created from these negative thought patterns that we hold within us. So that's how it gets developed. It becomes that subconscious inner voice that we hear that is making us, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure? Am I doubting? This is where doubt comes from. This is where any of those negative self-sabotaging thoughts, they're just running. And if you attach to them and you believe them to be true, they're going to show up in your reality. So you're reinforcing them. Now, this is my favorite part because I want you to look at a positive emotion. Pretend like this is a cell, like a cell form, right? And we're looking at a positive thought. This is what it looks like in my mind. So positive thoughts, they look very clean, right? They're very clean. They look pretty flow because when you're having these positive thoughts, they are in true alignment with who we are. They are your truth. This is why we're learning, right? Our consciousness is expanding. We're learning what is my truth, what is not my truth. What are the thoughts that are coming through that are no longer me, but are still a part of me and are still coming through. The positive thoughts are great because if you're perpetually creating positive thoughts, it's wonderful, right? Because you're living you're having all the good thoughts come around. The problem is whenever the negative thoughts start coming, because we're still perpetuating those and we don't know how they're happening. They just like keep coming. And so if you look at a positive thought, positive thoughts are all about expansion. They're all about growth, right? You feel good, you feel freedom, you feel clarity, There's inspiration, there's choice. We're sitting in a circle, we can feel the positive energy, the positive thoughts coming through. It feels good because it is a part of who we are. It's just a natural part of our flow. The negative thought figure, though, if you look at this as another cell that's coming around and you're attaching to, you can see how convoluted it is. And so what happens is your body will contract, like you literally are contracting, right? We can't have expansion without contraction. That's how we grow. So again, these are all part of us that we are learning to love, learning to become aware of, and learning to listen to our bodies whenever we have a negative thought that comes. Because this is the next step of just really listening to that body when you're present. That way you can make decisions that you prefer, look at your thoughts, be able to really develop that relationship with you, with yourself. But the contradiction of these negative thoughts are they're very limited, and we've all had them. We limit ourselves when we're in our negative core beliefs. We feel confused. There's sadness, there's depression. And what happens with the negative thought is it disassociates itself. You disassociate from your body when you're feeling that contraction, when you're feeling that trigger. And so a lot of times, because we can't stay in our bodies and we're not present, yesterday's conversation was really be present, look at it, be aware of it, stay in your body. And so I'm going to explain a little bit more of how the negative belief really dissociates you, because the negative belief is all about separation. It's all about separating. It's all about that dualistic reality of there's a physical separateness between these two forces, and I have to choose one or the other. But we all already know it's all encompassing. All of it creates the whole, creates everything that we are. So think of these as I talk about that as like these are just two cells that just continue to float around us, right? And they're both a part of us. So I want to stress the foundational concept here. So as science continues to evolve and we look at quantum science, quantum physics, when I started getting into these concepts, there's a concept called the multiverse. And so the concept with the multiverse is that you literally have your present moment, but you have an infinite amount of alternate realities going on at the same time, simultaneously. So what this means is, what science is bringing out with this concept is that in any given moment, right now, my reality is I'm in front of you guys, I'm doing this presentation, but with the multiverse concept, it's also saying that there's multiple possibilities that I can choose in this very moment, that I can be living another reality with 10 children somewhere. I could have another reality on a boat right now. I can have another reality. So the wise man knows that you can pick your reality. You can constantly choose in the present moment at any given time. You can choose something different. And so this is where the idea of just anything's possible, because if you can think it, you can literally shift into that reality. And so we call them, you can shift your paradigm, you can shift, there's like different concepts that come out of this idea of the multiverse and the multiple realities that can play out. But what happens is, and one of the things that I really got into, because I was like, this is interesting, I can literally pick what I want, whenever I want, and how do I practice that? My question was, then why do I continue to choose the same reality? Why am I living a reality in certain aspects of my life that I don't necessarily prefer? Because again, it's all subconsciously happening, and there's these programs that are just happening. And so that question led me to understand how the core negative root, or even thoughts by themselves and beliefs, actually operate. And so they have two fundamental structures here. So the thoughts that we think have, one, a self-perpetuating mechanism. So, and what that means is you have to continuously think the same thought in order to create this reality that looks like it's a continuous linear reality. And so when we're perpetuating the same thought, it makes sense, because you have to think the thoughts in order for them to create momentum, to create the reality and the physical part of who we are. And so there's the self-perpetuating part of it, but then there's also the thoughts that are self-reinforcing. So us as the free will operator here, because we all have the God-given free will to choose what we want, regardless of rules and government and whatever the case is, we have the God-given true free will to choose. And so, but what you're choosing things because it's reinforcing you. These beliefs continue to reward you when you create, when you think something. And so again, this is all happening in the background subconsciously, which is great again, right? If it's positive, you're living a positive life and you've cleaned up some stuff and you're looking at your wounds and you're having your aha moments. It's great because then you're perpetuating and you're rewarding yourself. This feels good. I'll continue to think more of this. I'll continue to think more of this. I'll continue to choose this. But it's that the negative parts that continue to feed itself. And the negative parts that we are literally choosing to think a certain way about a certain topic in our lives, and our negative core belief is rewarding us. There's a reason why we're staying in this reality. There's a reason why I'm not leaving this. And a lot of it is to do with safety. A lot of it has to do with feeling comfortable, because being in the unknown, if I know that I could pick this over and over and over, I already know that I know the outcome. But if I choose to pick something else and live in the unknown, that will trigger our bodies. That is scary, to live in the unknown. And so there's a lot that we just continue to choose just because it's comfortable, just because it's common, just because we're used to it. So having to think differently about a certain topic starts with the awareness of how all of this works and how you are literally being rewarded by yourself for choosing the same thought, even if it's a negative core belief. If there's anything that you take away from this weekend, this is my favorite slide. I want you to take away that in every given moment, you have the opportunity to choose what you prefer. Every single moment. It doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter the story. It doesn't matter anything. It matters what you choose to pick in your present moment and how you want your life to move, where you want that energy. If the possibilities are endless, then why aren't we choosing the ones that we want to shift to? Why aren't we choosing some of these things? And I want to start with that, because now I'm about to explain why it's so damn hard to surrender, to let go. And the first one, this is the first one that blew my mind. So the negative belief structure, right? We had that negative belief structure we painted that picture of convoluted. The first thing that a negative belief does is it attaches to your survival mechanism. And so when you have a negative belief, you're automatically feeling that trigger, right? But it's because it is attaching to the survival part of who we are, the fight and flight. And so it's taking you there. So you think about, and what the negative belief does is it makes you think that if I let this thing go, if I'm letting this go, that I will actually die. Like I am committing suicide. If I let this part of me or this identity or this thing, if I let it go, I will die. And our bodies react to it anytime we're moving into the unknown. And it is a trigger that happens because this is how the negative belief is structured. And the negative belief has to stay alive. It has to get you to continue to choose it in order to stay alive. So letting go of just, it's great. We did the fire ceremony, and it's like you can feel that you want to let it go. But when you actually let something go, there is a subconscious voice and shadow that is telling you that if you make this decision, you will die. Because then it makes itself to believe that it's all encompassing. That's the first trick. That is the number one trick of the negative belief. The second one, and the other part I want to stress here, is that no matter what, if we look at the light and the dark, right? And we look at the yin and the yang, whatever you want to call it, the light and the dark. At any given moment, there is a doorway that you can always go from the light to the dark. You can choose the thought by your thoughts. There's always a doorway from light to dark. And there's always a doorway from dark to light. Always a doorway. However, the negative belief uses these tricks to A, keep you off balance, to B, keep you confused, because everyone knows when you trigger how much you're either like trying to think about it, trying to change it, what did I do? How do I make this not happen? How do I do this? And your body's reacting to you. The second thing that the negative belief does, and its little trickery, is that it makes you believe that you cannot change it. Because not only A, are you gonna die, typically most of us, we stop there, because we're like, if I let this go, then what? And it's scary and it's fearful. It literally is attached and it's pulling on to your survival mechanism. It also then it disguises the doorway into the light. And so what it does is it's that voice that says, this is the only option. This is the only option. There is no way. And then you start living that self-fulfilling prophecy. See, here's proof. You want more proof that you're unworthy? You want more proof that you're unloved? You want more proof that you can't trust yourself? And it just continues to get you to perpetuate it and perpetuate it and perpetuate it. Because by definition, it's not even allowing you to understand that there is a doorway to think a different thought. Because not only are you going to die, but there's also no option. This is just how life is. My parents live this way. Everyone around me is living this way. This is just how it is. You drew the short end of the stick. You didn't get them, your parents weren't millionaires. So you just got, this is just how life is. And so we sit in that and we just continue to perpetuate it because we don't even allow ourselves to understand that there's a doorway. It disguises the doorway into the light. The third one then, as I was talking about, is the negative belief will reward you for staying where you're at. And so again, when you stay where you're at, when you continue to think that same thought, you're literally getting serotonin running through your body because when you choose this thought, you get rewarded for it. And so you continue to choose it. Here's a good example for me would be when I was going through my stuff with my husband, my shadow would be like, you're independent. You're an independent woman. You will never need a man. You would like all these things. And it empowered me to continue to stay on this route of separation from connecting with my husband because it just continuously fed and fed and fed into you're a bad bitch. Like, you got this. You're reward. So I'm like, yeah, I'm still an independent woman. I don't need connection. It was just like this whole perpetual thing. So it was rewarded. And what it does is it tells you, this negative belief tells you, you might as well stay here because I'm going to keep you safe. You might as well, because if you go out and you try to discover what I'm telling you, if you try to go out there and try to figure out and understand that what I'm telling you is true, that's going to be the end of you. Like, do you really want to go out there and find a different belief or a different way of looking at this topic? Because if you go to find out that you are unloved, that's gonna kill you. If you go find out you're unworthy, you can't trust yourself, we're gonna give you more evidence towards it, then you might as well not do that. You might as well not go through that door. So it uses all of these different techniques in order to keep you perpetuating that same thought to keep that reality coming. And again, a lot of it is that safety, the safety part of us. The other nasty thing that we've talked about a lot with the negative belief is that the projection part of us, when we project that it's someone else, so we don't even go into step one from yesterday, we don't even become accountable, because the negative belief is sitting there saying, she made me feel this way. She has to be the one to change. They have to change in order for me to get this life that I prefer. It's their fault and I'm stuck. There's no door out because in order for me to get what I want, the environment has to change. And it sits there and it just reminds you that that person is the one. So what it does is it takes you from not being accountable, which we all know that's step one from yesterday. Be accountable, accept that it's your feeling. This negative belief, this little booger, is one of the main roles is to remind you that you don't have any control, that it's somebody else, it's something else, it's the environment that's doing this to you. And so it keeps you there. So you keep perpetuating the same thought. Once again, another way that it gets you to keep itself alive as a negative belief. And so if anyone's coming into your life at this time that you're moving through this negative belief, you're getting evidence of this negative belief in your reality, someone comes up to you, a dear friend, a sister, and they're like, no, but you are loved. Like, look, there's all these reasons why you're loved. The negative belief will literally sit there and reject anything that comes in that tries to make this not true, this reality not true. Like, no, it just happened yesterday. And we defend ourselves and we stop the rejection. And the first thing we says is like, oh, they don't understand me. They don't understand what I'm going through. I feel misunderstood. And it is that we sit in that soup of, well, they don't understand me. That's not true because look at all the evidence that I have with my self-fulfilling prophecy because of the story that I keep telling and what I keep perpetuating, and it just continues to come. So whatever you're saying is not true. I am not loved. I am unworthy. I am, look at all this evidence. And so it'll sit there and it'll throw that at you, along with making you feel like you can't live if you change anything. It's disguising the doorway into understanding that you can choose what you want, but it prevents you from doing that just through the trickery. The other one then, and this is paranoia, so this goes really into the reward part of it, and it just keeps you, it literally just is sitting there telling you that, again, that it wants you to focus on all the negative stuff so that it'll keep itself alive. So when you try to move yourself into the light or into something different, that you can fill that pool of just so there's a paranoia of understanding like, no, this is not true. And you find yourself battling. How many of you found yourself like battling with yourself? This and this, and you're confused, and then you're disoriented, then you're sad, then you're depressed. Like, this is all exactly what the negative belief does, again, because this is the only way that it can keep itself alive. And so the paranoia, and then it uses the rationalization and justification. So again, this is really when we're fighting for our story, right? When we're fighting just to be heard, when we're fighting just to be understood, when we're fighting just to have someone look at your shit and be like, see, this is what's happening in my life, but you're the one who's creating it. So again, the reward. I always say with my dad, I'm like, I can understand where he comes from, because for some reason, when he makes these decisions or thinks a certain way, in my mind, now that I understand how a negative belief works, I understand there's something that is benefiting him by staying here. There's something that is benefiting someone for staying in their suffering. And you're being benefited and you're rewarding yourself. But it is, if you think of that negative belief as like the shadow part of just really trying to stay alive, that's what's happening within us. And so these were some bullet points that I put together as I started understanding really the ways that it tried to keep me off balance and how it just really tried to keep itself alive. So by understanding this, it allows you to, A, pull yourself out of the spiral quicker. It allows you to, when you start the spiral, when you start seeing yourself having those negative thoughts, you know that things are coming, you're like, oh, this is it again. It'll pull you out of the spiral quicker because you understand, okay, I'm reacting because it's attached to my survival mechanism. I'm reacting because it's trying to keep itself alive, and you can just start seeing how it plays itself out. You can start understanding more of your patterns, because then this allows you to become the observer of what you're thinking, instead of, again, attaching yourself to it. It allows you to realize how illogical it is to think this way. So when you see that thought trying to perpetuate itself again, that awareness of how the negative belief is structured and works with you is going to make you realize, like, oh, this is illogical. I am loved. You're able to understand that there is a doorway for each way through, if you're going to the light or the dark. It also helps you become aware that it doesn't resonate with your truth. So this is where we're learning to trust ourselves, because we know when it feels our truth and when it doesn't feel like our truth. And so when a negative belief comes up, when a negative thought pattern comes up and you contract, first of all, when you're present with your body, you're able to feel that, you're able to get that message from your body to know that it's not your truth. And so especially us as a group of women, we're all learning to trust ourselves. That has been our common, no doubt, trust, love myself, self-love. And so by understanding how it's operating, you'll be able to really resonate more with your truth and understand what is your truth and what's not your truth. It also allows you to no longer be influenced by the trickery. When you start projecting on other people, when you start only looking at the negatives of what's happening, when you start really understanding how it's just trying to keep itself alive, you're able to really not be influenced by it as much. This is practice, obviously. But it's just a belief like any other beliefs, and you don't have to believe the stories. So as the stories come up, you understand that as a free will soul, you have the option to choose that belief if you want to at any given time, but you don't have to. You don't have to allow that thought to continue to perpetuate itself anymore. You can just let it go, just watch it. Also, a negative belief will never die. And so what the belief wants you to do is it wants you to, again, it's trying to keep itself alive. The shadow is trying to keep itself alive. And so when you start understanding this, you understand that the negative belief becomes equalized as one of the many infinite choices you have to choose from. And I like this bullet point because it reminds me that it's a part of me. This negative belief is a part of me. It's never going to go away, but it's no longer going to have that charge because I now understand how it works. And so when you see the negative belief, you want to love the negative belief. You want to appreciate the negative belief because there in that present moment, you can see it and you can say, yeah, I'm not getting rid of you. Like, you will always be an option for me to choose, always. But it's just not the one that I prefer. And so thank you, thank you, negative belief, but I'm gonna go ahead and not choose you any longer. And you find that you have these options, the opportunity to choose something different. And that allows you to, really the last step of yesterday's presentation was to then, once you become present, then you can start making decisions in your present moment. This is allowing you to then choose what you prefer because you understand the trickery. So you're like, okay, well, what is true for me? We've kind of gone through some questions that you can ask yourself. And then just understanding that the belief, this is how you integrate these negative parts of ourselves. We're bringing it in. We're not trying to project. We're not trying to get rid of them. They're part of who we are, but we don't have to choose them. We don't have to make that decision to choose them. And this one's a little bit shorter than yesterday, but the takeaways is really just the same structure. Once you just understand that main structure, that main slide, is you always have the power to choose something different. You will not die because you change a core belief, no matter if your body triggers or not. When your body's triggering,